Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Neo on MMA podcast, recapping UFC Vegas 95. Let me adjust the microphone here real quick. This is what happens when the microphone is not in recording position all the time. It means that you end up just kind of guessing. So there's the problem. Anyways, UFC Vegas 95 was last night. There was also an Invicta card. I'm not going to talk about it much. I don't have much to add on the Invicta card. I don't honestly have much to say about the Vegas card either, but we're going to roll. I did picks, and let's see how they did. I went 6-4 on the night. I would argue that some of my picks I would make again, because I'm looking at, like, for example, my first loss of the night, which was Jonta Denise versus Carl Williams. Carl Williams just didn't fight like Carl Williams, and in the third round when he did, the fight went like how I thought it was going to go for all 3 rounds. So that was very disappointing. We'll talk about that more in depth, obviously. But that one stands out as one that I think I'd probably make again. I would probably pick Gregorio versus Kazama as well again. Or Kazama, pardon me. That one was just a really weird fight. And I guess the only one that I'd honestly change is probably the co-main event, Mariscal versus Jackson. I've long documented that my relationship with picking Mariscal fights is bad pretty much from day one. So I guess it's not surprising there. I am having some interesting internet issues right now, so I don't know if this is going to go up on Sunday or if it's going to go up on Monday. My I don't know what it is. The DNS, the ability to go to websites has been like hampered, and the upload per the speed test is garbage right now. So I don't know what's going on with that. Hopefully a reboot of that will fix, and this will be up on Sunday night. All right, let's talk about the fights. Not much to say about the main event other than, like, it was looking like Spivac versus Tybura won. Spivac coming forward, throwing some nice 1-2s on entrance, looking like a sharp but predictable boxer. Crashes into Tybura. They go down. There's a little bit of a scramble. Tybura ends up on top after Spivac goes for the back and cannot get it. And then he just throws up an armbar and stuns the world with submission, because an armbar from bottom against Marcin Tybura? If you had that as your pick, if you had that on your bingo card, I don't know what to say, because I don't think we've ever seen Spivac submit someone from bottom. I could be wrong, but, like, I'm looking at his record right now. Here are his submissions. He does have an armbar back in 2015 against 11-21 Yuri Gorbenko. I don't know. Maybe that one was for bottom. I don't think I've ever seen that fight. There's also Kimura here that I guess could theoretically be from bottom against 5-4 Yevgeny Bova back in 2014. And then after that, it's a neck crank against Tony Lopez. That was from top position. It was a Tai Tuivasa arm triangle victory. That was from top position. It was a arm triangle against Derek Lewis, obviously, also from top position. So, like, the idea that, like, Serghei Spivac from guard would submit Marcin Tybura, I don't know. That might be the most unlikely outcome possible for this fight. Like, I think either guy getting a knockout would have been higher profile. Either guy getting a submission from top, obviously higher profile. I actually even think probably Tybura from bottom getting a submission, probably also higher. So, I don't know. I don't know what to take away from the fight, honestly. Like, okay, Serghei Spivac showed off a dynamic of his game we did not previously know he had. Submitting Marcin Tybura from bottom is no mean feat. That is not easy. That is not unimpressive. It's just, it's heavyweight, man. Almost everyone in this division is just going to want to stand and bang with Spivac. So, like, he's not going to be on bottom. Like, I admire that he is trying to diversify himself into a more fully fledged grappler. I appreciate that. I think more people should. But I don't really know if it leads to wins anywhere down the road. I mean, I guess, I don't know, maybe against someone like a Curtis Blades or the guy I'm going to put him up against, Jailton Almeida. Maybe. I don't know. I don't think he submits Jailton Almeida from bottom. I'm just going to say that. But I don't know. That's a somewhat interesting fight. We saw Almeida fail the Curtis Blades test, put him in there with someone else who has theoretical grappling chops and wrestling and can resist him, and see what happens. Because like that's the big limitation with Almeida at heavyweight, is just that there's no viciousness to him in terms of like striking, ground and pound, knockout ability. So he has to be able to grapple with people. And I mean, Spivac is kind of a guy who that might be hard to do with. Tybura got against Shamil Gadziev. This is the Tybura deal. He basically is your guy who is going to go out there and test the up-and-comers. And I guess Gadziev is an up-and-comer. So, and the stylistic matchup would be, I guess, informative. So, there you go. Chepe Mariscal dominated Damon Jackson. I don't have a lot to say about this fight. It was a lot of scrambles, a lot of clinch fighting. And as a general rule, Mariscal was just too much for Jackson in those clinches. He would put him down. He would often end up on top. He would get dominant positions via the crucifix, via back mount occasionally. Back mount was not a friend to him. Jackson was able to shake him off of that pretty easily. But like he could side control. He would get positions where he could land a boatload of strikes. This is one of those ones where we're going to go to the UFC stats. Outlanded him 73-32. I gave the second and the third round as potential 10-8 rounds, where in 6 strikes, Mariscal outlanded Jackson 29-8 and 19-6, and in total strikes, outlanded him 94-14 and 71-12. Both of them, he had about 3 minutes of top control time as well. So there you go. He just overmatched Jackson. Jackson at no point had physical answers for Chepe Mariscal. I don't think it was necessarily a technique thing or anything like that. I don't think that was the case, but Mariscal, whether it was the weight miss or whether it's just, you know what, this guy is just, picture my hand up above my head and picture it down by my shoulder. And I thought he was down at the shoulder level. He's above the head, apparently, in terms of physicality. I don't know. I thought Jackson would be able to clinch with him and have not his way with him, because Jackson doesn't have his way with anybody, but he would generally be able to have this exact same fight, but be the scrambler guy and the guy who was more on top than on bottom. And yeah, that was kind of it. Once it became obvious that Mariscal wasn't going to gas out, there wasn't much to look out for here, because, I mean, Jackson's not exactly... I mean, he can be a dynamic finisher. There was the Pat Sabatini fight, but like that is the exception rather than the rule. I actually think that Jackson's corner probably should have thrown the towel in at the start of the third round. I know we don't get towel throw-ins in the UFC. That being said, I think that there were 2 moments on this card, we'll talk about the other one in a bit, where I think it should have been done. Because the fighter in question is somebody who does not have a history of being able to get finishes, in the other case, at all, but in Jackson's case, get finishes in scenarios like this, where he's being just kind of out-hossed and was taking exceptional amounts of damage to the point of like near 10-8, if not 10-8 rounds. 2 judges did give 10-8s in the second and the third. 1 only gave the second. I think that's fair. And at the end of the day, yeah, probably should have had a towel here for a moment, but we know that's not going to happen. Chepe Mariscal versus Nate Landwehr will be a super fun fight, I think. And Jackson I've got against Bill Algeo. Danny Barlow versus Nikolai Varetnikov was a fight I was looking forward to and never honestly really got off the ground. It was our controversy of the night because one judge scored the fight. This is Judge Jaron Vallel, who I have railed against as a judge, referee, replay official, basically everything. This guy is incompetent in his job. I have no idea why he gets paid to do anything related to MMA. He scored this 30-27 against Vallel. I'm not, for Vallel, I'm not going to get mad about it because honestly, this was just not very good. People on Twitter were mad about it, and I get it. I'm trying to pull up the UFC stats here, but as stated, internet issues abound. But if I recall correctly, there was one round that I think should have for sure gone to Barlow. I believe that was the first round. And I believe the third round probably realistically should have gone to Veretnikov. I think I scored it live for Barlow. But like on examination of like the UFC stats for what that is worth, Veretnikov probably should have taken third, and Barlow winning the second, or pardon me, with the second round being the swing round where neither guy did much. It was very, very low paced, and I basically essentially gave all three rounds to Barlow on the basis of I have seen Barlow do impressive physical things with his power before, and I've never seen Veretnikov do much that impressed me. Here we go. Total strikes, first round, 18-10 in favor of Barlow. Second round, 19-15 in favor of Veretnikov. And the third round, 30-19 in favor of Veretnikov. Veretnikov overall outstriking Barlow 59-52 in a 3-round fight at welterweight is unexcusable low output. And I don't know really what else to say about this fight. It was kind of foul heavy. There was a low blow. There was some eye poking going on there. So it's just, I don't have a lot of positives to give about either fighter. Veretnikov was largely one, maybe two strikes and done. Seems like he can't really throw any kind of volume, which is going to be a problem because he's not an overwhelming physical force. And for Barlow, I don't know if it was facing somebody who admittedly still an inch shorter than him and 5 inches down. And also Barlow missed weight, so there is a possibility that there was just a rough weight cut leading up to this. I think he's long-term going to be a 185er. I think that his power will travel up there and his physicality will travel up there. So why not do it? But I don't know, maybe just a bad weight cut, facing somebody a little bit more reach and height-wise accurate to him. A guy who, when he threw hooks against, because he loves to throw his left hook, when he throws hooks against, is in range to hurt him, or not even hurt him, but like fire back. And that made him very uncomfortable pretty early on. I don't know. It was a dull, not very good fight. For Danny Barlow, I've got Oban Elliott next, which is weird because if you had asked me before their last two fights, respectively, Elliott beat Preston Parsons, I would not have thought that that fight would be at all interesting. Like, I would have had zero interest in it because Barlow was like, this guy has got all the physical tools, and he's going to put things together, and he's going to get better, and there's some money coming in now, and surely he's going to, take some steps forward, and he just hasn't. And Oban Elliott was a guy who I was like, this guy is horribly physically limited, but then he showed off and actually did really well against Preston Parsons. So there you go. Put them together. Veretnikov gets Dana White Contender Series fodder because I don't know what else to really do with him. Like, he's kind of big, kind of athletic, but he's not overwhelmingly athletic, and he doesn't have a game that I think really actually functions without that overwhelming athleticism. Chris Gutierrez versus Quan Lee also was pretty bad. It was your standard Chris Gutierrez fight, essentially. It was Chris Gutierrez doing his thing, lots of low kicks, painful-looking low kicks. He is one of the best low kickers in the business, let's be honest. So there is that. But it never got out of first gear, which is not uncommon for Gutierrez. I mean, this was kind of my worry about when people were betting big money on this. They had Gutierrez as a massive prohibitive favorite. I'm like, this is not actually going to look like a minus 600 fight. It maybe should be, but it's not going to look like it. And it didn't really. Lee had some takedowns off of some caught kicks. That was nice to see, I guess. A bit concerning for Gutierrez in the long run that somebody who is still very raw, despite being 32 years old, is able to kind of time you and put you on your back via the caught kick scenario, maybe presenting a blueprint for how to deal with Gutierrez in the long run for a better fighter. But I don't know. I'm mentally going into fights. I'm intrigued by what Chris Gutierrez is going to do. I'm like, let's go. This is interesting. This is cerebral fighting. And then like afterwards, I'm just not actually interested in. But you know what? Defensively, he did marvelous outside of the cock kicks because like he got hit a total of 7 times in the first round, total of 6 times in the third round, 19 times the second round. Hit only 32 times in a bantamweight fight that goes 15 minutes. Hey, that's awesome. And that he spent 4 minutes on bottom of. So there you go. Not double-digit significant strikes in any round for Lee. So yeah, a shout out for Gutierrez. All the judges did give Lee a round. I'm imagining that was the second round, which I do believe I also scored for him. Yeah. He just ended up on top for a lot, and Gutierrez didn't do a lot, so I gave him that round. But not a great fight. Would have been nicer if this had actually been the Gutierrez-Basharat fight. Gutierrez will get another upper tier test that he'll probably fail, honestly. I'm not impressed in the fact that I'm not impressed, interested, or intrigued by the fact that he still continues to have the exact same issues he had kind of coming in. Like, he's developed this neutralizing, negative space, low kick heavy style. And I understand that that's never going to be super exciting necessarily. Like, it's not designed to be. But the fact that he has like the same mental breaks in like every fight, like jumping a armbar in this particular one, is it's not promising. Lee was supposed to fight on the Dana White Contender Series and probably will just get Dana White Contender Series fodder. There's not much to consider there. The problem with him is he's 32. He turned pro in like his late 20s and is now in the UFC at 32 with very, very, very little seasoning. Like, he's very raw, but like also in his like prime when you're supposed to be getting like a ranking and stuff. Like, it's just a bit weird. Yana Santos, Chelsea Chandler was not a very good fight. I was more or less disabsorbed with the commentary in this one because the commentary in this one was glazing Santos hard. She debuted with a UFC title shot in a division the UFC doesn't actually have or has and never had. And trying to make her just seem like really like she looks really sharp. I'm like, you're not wrong. But she's also fighting Chelsea Chandler off a 6-pound weight miss and cutting too much weight. And she's a featherweight that the UFC keeps booking at bantamweight. And she's also not very good. Like, there's a lot of ands on there that like realistically are going to impact anyone beating Chandler. Like that, it just, I'm sorry. She wants to do one thing only. And she's not very good at it because while I actually think she is a decent top grappler, like if she gets you down, you are in trouble. But she pairs that with just brute force, raw physicality takedowns that were never going to work against Santos. And frankly, are never going to work against anyone with physical ability. And I was kind of hoping when she got signed, because I was a little bit high on her when she got signed. It was like, all right, she's very raw, but she just needs to be confronted with the fact that she is raw and needs to add another element, and she will. And that never happened. That never happened. And now she's 33 years old and still raw as cookie dough. Anyways, I don't have a fight for Chandler. Cutter, you don't have the division that she wants to fight in. You don't have the division that she should be fighting in. Why is she here? I don't. It's like I said. I don't blame her for the weight miss. I blame the UFC's like booking, frankly, because she has gone on record as saying that she asked for 145 bookings, and they won't give it to her. So I'm not really sure what she's supposed to do, but try to make 135, which she probably can't do terribly healthily, and or I guess ask to be cut, which seems really weird. But anyway, she should just be like in Invicta or something, doing like 145 fights. That's realistically what should be on the table. We're not going to get this fight, but I actually like the idea of Yana Santos versus Tainara Lisboa like a lot. It's not going to happen because Santos has to move up off of this. She just beat a ranked fighter. She's going to get someone higher up, but like I don't know. None of those fights actually interest me all that much. Santos is fine. I've historically enjoyed her fights more or less. She's a good clinch fighter. She has some decent tools at range. She can fight a little bit in the pocket. She can grapple. Like she is the MMA well-rounded, like, idea. But like there's not really anything that's ever going to be like I don't remember a fight of hers that I like want to watch over and over and over again. And she's gone up in ranking several times and lost to Cara Hossa, Holly Holm, Irene Aldana, Aspen Ladd, Cyborg, of course. It's like I'm not interested in seeing her take that step up. But like she can, beat Ketlin Vieira, Chelsea Chandler, Julia Stoliarenko, Marion Renault, Lena Landsberg, like fairly cleanly. I would do the Lisboa fight. We won't get it. There you go. Yeah, like here's the UFC run. Cyborg, Lena Landsberg, Marion Renault, Aspen Ladd, Julia Stoliarenko, Ketlin Vieira, Irene Aldana, Holly Holm, Cara Hossa, Chelsea Chandler. Name me one of those fights that you actually want to see again. That's the problem. They're not outside of this one. This one and the Stoliarenko fight, they're not all-time stinkers or anything. But really, 2 judges gave Chandler the 3rd round. Hang on. I just assumed this was a 30-27 the whole time. Chandler got around? What was the justification for that? What's going on here? I don't even know. Hang on. My notes here are just so pro Santos. Like there's nothing for Chandler. It's like the commentary wants Chandler to do something different, and she doesn't have the tools to do it. What was the UFC stats of the 3rd round here? Okay, hang on. Santos outlanded her 58-33. How'd she get 2 cards? How? She had clinch control for like a minute and a half. That's about it. What are we doing? What are we doing here? I don't know. I'm confused. I don't understand. That just broke me. Charlotte Booz Gregorio versus Toshio Kazama. Kazama, pardon me. That pronunciation is never going to really stick for me. Kazama won the first round by getting basically a takedown, a lot of control, looking for a rear naked choke at one point, and getting a nice little sweep and so on. Clearly at a physical disadvantage. Like it was very obvious that Gregorio it's kind of like watching somebody at a BJJ gym try to grapple with somebody who's like just larger and stronger than them, but doesn't know what they're doing. Like it's a white belt versus like a blue belt sort of deal, or like even a purple belt, but like it's a purple belt with like low physicality. That was what this is. Kazama is actually like really quick, but like that's kind of all he's got going for him. But anyways, 2nd round, Gregorio goes ham. This was probably the best part of the fight, and probably the best part of the fight card. Honestly, he's like throwing jumping knees and like spinning and like just fiercely beating up Kazama. Fiercely beating him up, drops him and goes into his guard, landing some fierce elbows, looking to finish. And Kazama is like looking beat up and so on, but like he just weathers the storm, and Gregorio gassed out like no one's business and got triangled. I said, I think on Twitter at this point that like, man, Gregorio needs to be dropped by his gym, because this is embarrassing for the Sarah Longo Weidman like lineage that this guy represents them in the UFC. Like with Aljamain Sterling and with Ray Longo at his corner and so on. It's just like, he's got bad cardio. He's a terrible grappler. He is an okay striker, and he definitely has like some physical gifts, but like my dude is 32 years old and still has gaping holes that will prevent him from winning any UFC fight against anyone that belongs. I picked him to beat Kazama because I didn't think Kazama belonged, and Kazama has serious durability issues, but that is it. For Kazama, I've got Damon Blackshear. 1, because I want to see Blackshear get a win. He's on a 2-fight skid, and I think he will win that fight. But also, Kazama is like an interesting kind of like creative, neat little grappler, and so is Blackshear. That would be fun. Like that is the funnest thing to use Kazama for. Like I think otherwise you're just putting him in there against people who are going to try and stand with him and knock him out. So there you go. And Gregorio, like I said, can just be shown the door from the gym and the promotion. I have zero interest in seeing him fight again. I have very, very, very little patience or respect for like repetitive cardio issues. I'm sorry. That's something you go and you fix it before you get back in this cage. And he's gassing himself out. Like it's not like Chad Anheliger in his last fight or Kazama here forced like some insane pace on him. No. He gassed himself in both fights. Anyways, Karol Rosa versus Petty Kianzad was a pretty one-sided beatdown from Rosa against Kianzad. Like I picked Rosa, to be clear. I thought she would win, and I didn't even really understand what Kianzad could do to like win. But Rosa was just eating up her legs with the low kicks and just like it felt like kind of winning like every exchange. Like, don't get me wrong, the striking numbers, I got them up here real quick, were like pretty close. 42-40 Rosa, 56-44 Rosa, 54-42 Kianzad. Although, to be clear, the third round there is a little bit misleading because that was the one where we had 4 minutes of ground time for Rosa, and Rosa landed 23-9, outlighted her 23-9 in significant strikes. And it was just a lot of like stuff from bottom from Kianzad. So like that doesn't even really count. But like the first 2 rounds, like Kianzad was keeping up because Rosa's defense is not particularly good, if we're being honest. She's someone who's a volume fighter more than anything else. Only outlanded her by 2 strikes overall, but like there was just no comparison on the horsepower. Like anytime they would engage, it's just like, I'm going to hit you so much harder than you could hit me that it just doesn't matter that we went like 2 for 2 or whatever. It's just, oof. This was the other fight that I thought a towel should have been thrown in for. Here's the deal with Petty Kianzad. And I understand that this has been brought up that like MMA fans, generally speaking, are more inclined to call for the towel in women's fights. I think that's true. And I do think that that's often rooted in like, a sexist attitude, a protective deal with women that doesn't exist with men. But I think it also comes down to this, is that if you look at Kianzad's record, she has not finished anyone in a decade. So when you're seeing her 2 rounds down, unquestionably 2 rounds down to Rosa, and getting her leg kicks or getting her legs bashed up as bad as they are, getting bloody, getting damaged, like real physical damage here. This is not a being down 2 rounds to John Fitch moment where like, yeah, okay, he's going to like snuggle me for 5 more minutes. This is, you're getting your butt kicked. You are taking serious, I don't want to say like life-altering damage because, I mean, it might be, but it like probably not. But like at least the next couple of months, altering damage for your life. And for what? Because nothing's going on. Like you are somebody who has not won a fight by finish in 10 years, has not significantly hurt somebody in probably about the same amount of time. It's like, what version of this fight, once you are down 2 rounds to nothing against Karol Rosa and getting your butt kicked, does Petty Kianzad win? So anyway, that was my thought. But like Rosa turned up the pressure, turned up the pace a little bit, not to what she was, but to the point where I think she was driving the action again and trying to find the old Karol Rosa that we were really excited about and really interested in. And it is pretty cool to see that. To see 117 6-strike performance, 140 landed, threw 223, did the thing, got 1 takedown out of 2 takedowns, held that takedown for like 4 minutes. There you go. Just kind of like very powerful performance. I've got her against Macy Chiasson, and I've got Kianzad against the winner of Eileen Perez and Daria Shelezhnikova. Then we had, I basically talked about this fight already, Carl Williams versus Janta Diniz. And essentially, Williams decided to box with Diniz and lost all 3 rounds, in my opinion. You could give Williams the 3rd round. He got rocked very badly, like got put on the stanky leg, and then took, Diniz down to the mat and finished on top. Had like probably like, 15 seconds at the end of like really determined ground and pound. I could see that round going to him, but I think Diniz got the clean sweep here. The problem with this fight, the frustration is, and I saw this discussed on Twitter, obviously, is that people are going to come out talking about that how bad Carl Williams looked, and like Diniz is going to get very little shine off this. The problem is that there's no way around that. It's just Diniz went out there and outboxed a guy who we know doesn't have much of a striking game. And he didn't finish him. And it's not like he kept him standing by like fending off a bunch of takedowns or anything, because simply put, Williams didn't go for them. He got 2 takedowns, and I want to see here. I want to say he had like 3, maybe 4 attempts. 5 attempts. I'm slightly off. 5 attempts, but like of those attempts, several of them were while he was way too far outside, which credit, Denise can keep some distance and like, sort of neutralize the wrestling threat that way. But it's just, I don't know. It's one of those fights where like, I want to praise the guy who won. I want to praise Denise for fighting hard for 15 minutes, showing reasonable cardio by heavyweight standards, and getting the job done. I also can't ignore that once Williams actually started to like just be a wrestler, he did out wrestle him without that much difficulty. I don't know what we learned. I assumed that there's some backstory with Carl Williams being injured or something, and that kind of ruined it a little bit. Anyways, I've got Denise against Mick Park, and I've got Williams against... I don't really care. It's not that I'm not interested in Carl Williams. It's that Carl Williams is like on that Curtis Blades track of being the one guy who wrestles in your section of the heavyweight division. Like the only guy. And as a result, you're not really a test for anybody because it's a matchup they're not going to see otherwise. And it's hard to see what would be a test for you. So like this is not like a Charles Olympus Gregorio where I'm like, throw him out. He's no good. He's not, he's shouldn't be here. Or someone like a Toshio Kazama who like, has some fun aspects or whatever, but like, I don't really know what to do with. Or Chelsea Chandler, who's just like super raw. Or Kwang Lee, who I don't really know what his game even really looks like or whatever. It's just, when it comes down to it, he's just such an anomaly at the heavyweight division that I don't know what to do with it. Like, he'll do well. I predict he's going to win his next fight. But I just don't know who it should be against. Yarno Aarons versus Yusuf Zalal. Yarno Aarons was looking pretty okay early on. Like, he had a nice little flurry. He did a spinning wheel kick that didn't even come close to the target. This is peak Aarons, basically, where like, why did you do that? You probably can't tell me why you thought that was a good idea at all. And Zalal was working some nice low kicks, got poked in the eye. There was a bit of an idea that maybe it wasn't a poke. It was a poke. Aarons' hand was in the quote unquote legal position where hands to the sky. I'm doing movements with my hands. I'm like not on camera, but like how they say it, like keep the fingers up. You can parry, hit fingers up, whatever. But like it is still an eye poke. It's just like that affects the intentionality and the like nature of the foul for Aarons. Not that there was a foul. Anyways, come back from the eye poke test. Zalal's looking for a takedown. Aarons might have got away with a small fence grab, but Zalal gets the chain wrestling going, gets the fight to the ground, takes the back. Aarons stands up. I've got a backpack. Boom, but the backpack is choking me. There's a tap out. There you go. The UFC, again, this was another weird one for the commentary because they were trying to present Zalal as like a new man because he was in the UFC before and got cut. And it's got back to the UFC. And it's always nice to see that. I want to make that clear. But I think, like, honestly, the new use of Zalal is just fighting guys who are not as bad as stylistic matchups for him. Because, like, early on in his UFC career, he beat Austin Lingo. That's not nothing. He beat Jordan Griffin. That's not nothing. He beat Peter Barrett. That is kind of nothing by UFC standards. And then he lost to Ilia Topuria, Sung Woo Choi, Sean Woodson, and had a draw with Damon Blackshear. Now, Topuria is now the champion. Choi is a horribly flawed fighter, but one that hits very, very hard and like stings exceptionally hard. And Woodson is exceedingly tall in like a weird, awkward matchup. And then Blackshear is also a weird matchup because he's like a funky grappler kind of dude and like also like pretty big and whatever. It's just like that 4-fight run is just like guys who Zalal probably really shouldn't beat. Now he's come back. He's beaten Billy Quarantillo and Yarno Aarons. I will say that beating Billy Quarantillo by rear naked choke, kind of surprising, but Billy Quarantillo is a guy who if you can take him out of the fight early and start making it your pace and break him down, you can beat Billy Quarantillo. Like that's the problem for Billy Q, is he's a guy who needs to go late, weaponize his cardio, break you down, and do his thing. Like it's a fight that he's lost in similar fashion to other people throughout his career. And realistically, that's kind of just all it was when Zalal beat him. And then now Yarno Aarons, who's like this grab bag skill of like, good physicality, but like otherwise kind of formless. Anyways, for next opponents, I've got Zalal versus Andre Fili. And I've got Yarno Aarons probably getting cut. Or not cut, but like released, not re-signed, because my understanding is most of the first rung UFC fights contracts are 4 fights long. And if you look at him, this was his 4th fight. He's lost to William Gomez. He's lost to Sung Choi. He's lost to Yusuf Zalal. And he beat Steve Wynn, who might just be a fundamentally flawed fighter. So, 1-3. I wouldn't be stunned. Like, if he's willing to, like, not try to get a raise of any kind, he'll be back. But, like, I also don't really know what to do with him, because it's kind of like I said, like, he is a decent athlete. It's not that he's not a UFC fighter. It's not that he's not of this caliber. It's that he's now 1-3, which means he's going down to the bottom against guys that you would like to test in some way. And he doesn't test them because he's unreliable from a game plan and like fight standpoint. like, unless the test is literally just, have you ever faced an athlete before? I don't know what he does. So it's a weird position. I mean, you can put him in action fights and it'll be fine. It'll be fine. I don't necessarily like desire to see him cut. It's just I don't know what to do with him. Stephanie Luciano versus Talita Alencar. This was the 3rd round of their fight. Basically, Luciano kind of realizing, you know what? I can outstrike her pretty easily. I just need to kind of be aware of the takedowns. I need to diffuse them a little bit. I have the size, the physical strength, whatever. I shut down her takedown game for like 20 times in the first fight. So we just need to do that again. And she did. She looked like she was enjoying herself out there. There were a couple of points where like I would have liked to see Luciano kind of step up and start doing a little bit more, if you know what I mean. Because there were like some moments where like she was just kind of staying at range and kind of like doing something, spinny or jumping knee or whatever a little bit, and just not really pressing advantages that I thought she had. But hey, you're in your UFC debut. Go get that win. There you go. And she did. She outstruck her 27-17, 31-9, and 29-19 on paper. And Alencar's lack of like reach, height, size, and a game that isn't just kind of a more or less pure grappling game really couldn't compete with Luciano. And hey, the dice didn't let me down. Next fights, I've got Luciano against Josephine Knudsen. I've got Alencar against Shauna Bannon. Not really anything else to say about the card. It was pretty bad. I watched it in conjunction with a CFL game where my Hamilton Tiger Cats lost. So it was double painful. But yeah, I don't have much else to add. We got UFC 305 coming up, as well as PFL 8 next week. Let's see here. PFL 8, anything good? We got the playoffs. Kazanganai versus Silvaria. Wilkinson versus Yagshimirov. Those are both fun fights at 205. And at 155, we've got Rabazanov versus Dufour. I don't think that's going to be all that good, but maybe. And Primus and Collard. Ironically, the lightweight fight's not as interesting as the 205 ones. Further on down, Baggio Ali Walsh's second fight. I don't care about Baggio Ali Walsh. Like I understand he's from a bright lineage. He's related to Muhammad Ali and all that fun, and I get it. I would probably push the crap out of him as well. It's just that I personally am not very interested. We've got Antonio Carlos Jr. versus Carl Alberts. That's fun. And not really necessarily fun, but it's interesting. Danny Sabatello versus Lazaro Dayron. I don't know you. El Cazador, 8-0, 32 years old. Probably probably has some kind of other background. Kind of one notable win, realistically. His second best win is Arnold Bourdon, who I largely only remember because of, let's be honest, some unfortunateness around his wife. Anyways. And further on down, there is Elvin Espinosa versus Mads Burnell. That's fun. Thad John versus Chris Brown. It's an unfortunate name. And then some very raw fire. Oh, Michelle Montague. Okay, Michelle Montague's not too bad. And then, of course, the UFC 305 card, Dricus du Plessis versus Israel Adesanya, Kai Kara-France, Steve Ursay, Mateusz Gamrot, Dan Hooker, Tai Tuivasa versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik, The Leech versus Carlos Pratis is your main card. It's not that those are bad fights. It's just that for a UFC pay-per-view card with the price that currently is being charged, I don't know. It feels kind of meh. I mean, the main event is going to be, well, I honestly don't know what the main event's going to be because I don't know where Israel Adesanya's head is right now. That fight with Sean Strickland was bad. Not like in terms of bad to watch, but like it was a terrible performance and we haven't seen him since then. And he's fighting Dricus du Plessis, who I kind of think can do a lot of the same things, but with like way more impact than Sean Strickland. Kai Kara-France, Steve Ursay. That's a fun fight. Flyweight's always good. I'm not really all that interested in Hooker versus Gamrot. I'm sorry. It's just stylistically. It's two guys I'm interested in, but stylistically, I don't think it's going to be particularly great. Rozenstruik versus Tuivasa. That's fun. Leech returning against Carlos Pratis is fun. It just doesn't really feel like main card worthy. And then on the undercard, you got Junior Tafa versus Walter Walker. Not all that interested. Josh Kulabau versus Ricardo Ramos. Not bad. Casey O'Neill versus Luana Santos. Not bad. Jack Jenkins versus Herbert Burns. My God, if Jack Jenkins does not slaughter Herbert Burns, I don't know what to do. Tom Nolan versus Alex Reyes. Why? They're not good. They're not good. Tom Nolan is just obscenely tall, and Alex Reyes shouldn't be here. He's a 6'3" guy. He lost to Nicholas Mata. What are we doing? I don't know. I'm not excited for that one. You can tell. Kenan Song versus... Why is Ricky... Oh my God, Ricky Glenn's at 170. Why? Why are you doing this to me? Kenan Song's going to win that. And Stuart Nicole versus Jesus Aguilar. Or Stuart Nicole versus Jesus Aguilar. Ain't no Australian prospect. Is this an actual prospect? Or is this a dude who's just been beating people up? Beat Down Promotions. I am not familiar with you. I will probably go and try and find his fight with Issei Quintano, who is a 5-0 fighter at the time of their fight, and see what happened there. But otherwise, I don't love the record. I don't know the guy. We'll dig into it. Maybe that'll be my favorite fight on the card. Anyways, check out my social medias down below. My video gaming stuff and all of that fun is also there, including the MMA simulator over on Discord. I will talk to you for UFC 305.